live. Welcome. Thank you. Let me just get this set up. Oh, please. And now it's gone. There we go. There. Let me just get this reset up again. Took a second there. Welcome. I hope everybody is doing well. Another Square and Compass live stream. Phone is okay now. I do these every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I had a great stream last night. I really enjoyed it. I guess it'd be early this morning. I tried a midnight live stream just to see how it went, and I was very happy with everybody who showed up. But I'm back at my normal schedule, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today, once we'll do the typical, wait the first hour, see who shows up. Second hour, have our discussion. Today, I wanted to talk about more what I talked about yesterday, which is whether the election of the new pope may result in a change as to the Catholic view on Freemasonry, as well as the history of the Catholic view on Freemasonry, particularly related to Pope Leo XIII. The current pope, the new pope, chose the name Leo XIV in part to honor Leo XIII and Leo XIII's views on AI, artificial intelligence. Well, the Pope Leo XIII's view on the Industrial Revolution. The current pope feels that there are parallels to be drawn between that revolution, which happened during the reign of Pope Leo XIII, and currently artificial intelligence and new revolutions affecting the working poor, things of that nature. However, Pope Leo XIII also had some, shall we say, interesting views on Freemasonry, or some more negative views on Freemasonry. And so I'm curious as to see whether those views are also going to be repeated, or whether the fact that this current pope is from America, from Chicago in particular, where Freemasonry is relatively well established, maybe there will be more favorability towards Freemasonry and a better understanding of it that will result in the Catholic Church changing their kind of views. But that is for later. For right now, I'm just hoping everybody can jump in, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know what you think of Freemasonry. Any thoughts, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. Right, this first hour is just wait to see who shows up in the stream and what thoughts they may have. Because for me, personally, I am always interested to hear what people have to think, what people have to think about Freemasonry. You only got like 3 hairs on your head, so I don't know how you can get your hair cut. But nonetheless, welcome, Dad. Tell Florence I say hello back. I hope that she is doing well. And I hope that you are doing well also. By the way, I was just talking to my friend who came with us. He had a great time in Winnipeg. So thank you again for being a great hotel. I'm just waiting to create my chat question. Jack, welcome, Jack, says hello. Hello to you. I hope that you are doing well. I'm not sure if you're new to the stream or not. I don't recall seeing you before. If you are new, if you'd be so kind as hit the like button and subscribe button, I would truly appreciate it. We talk about Freemasonry here on the stream every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to, once I get the chance here, leave a poll question for you guys to answer. But Jack, I hope that you're doing well. Let me see. Oops. Let me just, that's going to be kind of our main question. Let me do this in a poll question form. With the new hope. Will the Catholic Church review / change its official policy towards Freemasonry? All right, start that poll. But that is more the question we're going to talk about in the second half, or the second hour. The first hour, as always, just hanging out, seeing who joins, who says hello, and what it is that you guys want to talk about when it comes to Freemasonry. Any thoughts, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. Or maybe might be interesting and worth. I said I might do a poll at some point asking people if they have any specific topics that they want to talk about. But as always, the first hour or so, we just wait to see who's going to join and what, if anything, they want to talk about. Pepperific. Well, that makes me clench my legs together, and I'm in a wheelchair, so I don't even have legs. And nonetheless, that makes me clench a little bit. So I don't know what to talk about there, especially because I don't know how that relates to Freemasonry. Other than, everybody should do what they think is best for their health, in line with what their doctor, says. Always listen to your doctor. With that, Pepperific, I do hope, because I don't recognize you from before, I think you're new, I hope you'll hit the like button and the subscribe button. Let me know how it's going, and if there's anything that you want to chat about. Answer the poll question. If you have any questions about Freemasonry, let me know what they might be, and I will do my best to try and answer them. Can't make any promises. I know everything, but I've been a Mason since 2007, so hopefully I have at least some knowledge based on my experience, both in terms of what Freemasonry is and why I think it is a valuable thing, and some resources I have which can potentially help people grow in Freemasonry, as well as help lodges grow. And as always, we'll give it the first hour or so to see who shows up. I may also try going back to doing these streams through the computer with the microphone, the same way I do my interviews, because I find sometimes that can help get more people to join as well. So we shall see. But for now, well, I'm not a big fan of that language, QIREXX. I'm not a member of the church, but I have no problem with people of, sexual orientation joining any church that they so desire, or for that matter, Freemasonry, or for that matter, anything they want to do. I have no idea who that is then. I have no idea to whom you are speaking. As somebody who's not a member of the church, all right, I am, so I don't know, I know very little about the church itself. I know about the church, the Catholic Church's history with Freemasonry. And I have no, I know about the Catholic Church's views on Freemasonry, which I'm hoping will be changing. Which is kind of based on, again, the new Pope coming from Chicago, what that might mean. Coming from a place where Freemasonry is relatively well established, but nonetheless, in terms of other church politics, I do not know much about it. But for the time being, we're just going to give it a chance for some more people to join, see who jumps in the chat, says hello, and any questions they may have about Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. And like I said, the first hour is us just waiting to see who joins. The second hour is where we talk about specific topics, such as in this case, it's going to be the new Pope and potentially his views on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. And why I think the new Pope may result in a more positive view in the Catholic Church on Freemasonry or of Freemasonry. Welcome. If you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, answer our poll question. Do you think the new Pope will result in a change towards the Catholic Church and Freemasonry? Jump in the chat, say hello. I do these streams every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about Freemasonry. The first hour is usually just waiting to see who joins, and then the second hour we talk about the specific topics. Although I may see and potentially switch that over and start talking about the main topic a little bit earlier. welcome. If you're just joining us, hope you hit that like button and subscribe button. I'm going to be sharing this stream in a few minutes. See who else may be interested in joining. But we're here to chat about Freemasonry. I do these streams every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about Freemasonry. So any thoughts you may have on Freemasonry, I'd love to hear them, positive, negative, or neutral, before we switch over to our main topic, which is going to be the new Pope and whether there is the potential there for a change in the Catholic Church's view towards Freemasonry. Just updating the stream here quickly. And it was a great stream last night. Honestly, it's funny. I'm having more success at my later night streams in terms of people than these afternoon streams. So maybe it's worth doing more late night streams. Let me know if you prefer evening streams. I guess it makes sense, right? People coming off of work. But I hope everybody is doing well. Please, if you're just joining us, jump in the chat, say hello, answer our poll question with the new Pope. Do you think that will change or affect the Catholic Church's view on Freemasonry? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are there, as well as any other thoughts you may have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. Let me know. I would love to hear them. And we'll start talking about my specific subject, which again will be Pope Leo XIV, Catholic Church view on Freemasonry, in a few minutes once we get done with this first hour, waiting to see who joins. Also, this month is Mental Health Month in the States, and I thought that was really worth taking a few moments to talk about the benefits Freemasonry has to our mental health, to membership mental health, as well as how it improves the mental health in communities altogether. You know, by limiting isolation, it improves both mental health and physical health. Going to give it a bit of time to see who else joins us, though, in the stream. Welcome. If you're just joining us, hope you'll be so kind as the like button and subscribe button. Let me know how it's going and anything you want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry. Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. I do these streams every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, CD, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you again. I hope that you are doing well. I feel like it's been a little while, so it's great to have you back. Also, Dad saying, for some reason it wasn't showing up. I'm not sure why. There we go. Now the messages are showing back up again. Tomorrow, I have a regular meeting. Also, discuss the following after you coming in 2 weeks. That is awesome. I hope that the meeting goes well also. Thank you so much for joining us. Just giving a bit of time to see who else joins us in the chat, who else wants to say hello. I do, though, hope everybody is doing well. Please, if you are just joining us, take a moment, hit that like button and subscribe button. Let me know, CD, what your thoughts are as to the new Pope and whether that may affect the Catholic Church's policy towards Freemasonry. I agree. That is one of the reasons why I do have some hope. Freemasonry in Chicago is pretty well established. It's been there for a long time. So that makes me think maybe there is some potential benefits to, maybe because it's well established, he's not from a place where Freemasonry is relatively new, or maybe has more clandestine issues such as South America. Maybe that was a more positive step towards Freemasonry, or the Catholic Church's view towards Freemasonry. However, the new Pope's namesake, Pope Leo XIII, had some, shall we say, more negative views towards Freemasonry. So that does concern me a little bit. He wrote a more negative book towards Freemasonry not that long ago. So it's tough to say. But I do think it's pretty cool, especially because as somebody who loves Chicago myself, I think it's really cool. Just waiting to see a bit more time, see if anybody else jumps in the chat before we start talking about the subject. I always like to give people a little bit of time to find the stream as we talk about Freemasonry. Although it seems like the evening streams do better than the morning streams, so who knows? Maybe I will start this stream a little bit, or start the main topic, which again is Catholic Church's view on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. Or I guess the Catholic Church's view being more negative, but why that is and how it is, I think maybe the new Pope will potentially change that. I would imagine that ushering in a new father and brother in faith would be a monumental and historical event. If we could ever get a Freemason to be the Catholic Pope, that would be an incredibly monumental event. I don't know if that will ever happen, at least not in my lifetime, but I do think it'd be pretty monumental. Again, I'm not Catholic myself, but I do think the Catholic Church's views on Freemasonry, it's unfortunate, and it's one of those areas where hopefully we can start to see some changes with some more quote unquote modern popes. See, I'm just trying to find. I've not seen anything that. I've never seen anything from this current Pope. I'm trying to do some research of him talking about Freemasonry specifically. Well, I don't think he will change the system, at least not the whole system, but he may change elements of the system, right? Specifically, maybe he will change this view that people, the church's view on Freemasonry. Again, I don't know. I've not seen anything particular that Pope Leo XIV has said about Freemasonry one way or the other. His namesake, Pope Leo XIII, was negative towards it, very negative towards it, which does fill me with some discomfort. But at the same time, the fact that this is an American American Pope who who grew up and lived in a place where Freemasonry was well established, does give me hope that maybe he will reconsider. Or if was approached by a Freemason, maybe a Freemason from Chicago or Illinois may take another look at things. Who knows? Welcome. If you are just joining us, I hope you are doing well. Please take a moment to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, we are here chatting about Freemasonry. I do these every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Today, we're going to be talking about Freemasonry and the Catholic Church, or particularly the Catholic Church's view on Freemasonry, We have a new Pope, Pope Leo the XIV, and that has made me wonder and consider if maybe, because it is American Pope from Chicago, there may be a change in views towards Freemasonry. I don't know, but I think it's worth exploring. And please, as always, take a moment, hit the like button and subscribe button, and let me know how it's going. I'm going to give it another, let's say, 5-10 minutes, and then we'll start on the actual subject. All right, let's give it another couple minutes. Actually, what I'm gonna do is quickly share this stream on a few locations, and then we'll see if anyone else joins. If not, we'll get started on today's topic. As always, though, we will have more discussions tomorrow and the following days, so... Let me just see if I can get this thing. There it is. Welcome if you're just joining us. This is Square and Compass Promotions live stream. I do these streams Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we are talking about Freemasonry, the new Catholic Pope, Pope Leo XIV, and whether a new Pope will mark potentially a change in the Catholic view towards Freemasonry, which I would be very curious to see myself. I think a lot of people are very curious to see what will happen. I understand that, there's a long-standing history recently reconfirmed of the Catholic Church having a negative view towards Freemasonry, but we have a new Pope who is from Chicago, a modern location. Maybe that will change. Who knows? I think it's worth exploring, worth asking the question. Maybe it would be interesting if some Illinois Freemasons were to get in touch with, maybe have some connections there to see if they can get the Catholic Church to reconsider its views, which I think would be a very, very powerful event if it were to take place. So, well, I guess I can get started now. Or in 1 second. And by the way, Dad, tell your brothers that I hope they have a great meeting tomorrow. All right, let's try this again. So, as we know, if you're watching the stream, I talked about this last night as well. We have a new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. That is not his actual, that's the name he picked. His name by birth was Robert Francis Prevost, born September 14th, 1955. But as of 2025, he is Pope Leo XIV, head of the Catholic Church, sovereign of Vatican City State, elected May 8th, 2025. He was born Chicago, Illinois, United States, raised in a town near the city's south side, which means he is a fan of the White Sox. So I do really like that. He is a United States citizen and a naturalized citizen of Peru. The first pope from North America, his papal name, Leo XIV, was inspired by Pope Leo XIII, who developed Catholic social teachings, which does provide some concerns if you're a Freemason, which we'll talk about in a second. So I'm not going to talk really more about Pope Leo XIV, other than to say, as I noted, his name was inspired by Pope Leo XIII, who developed Catholic teachings. Now, specifically, Pope Leo XIV said what inspired him particularly about Pope Leo XIII to pick his name or to select the name was Pope Leo XIII's views on social issues, especially as related to the Industrial Revolution. Right? He said, I'm just pulling up the quote right now. He selected his name to honor Pope Leo XIII for Pope Leo XIII's commitment to social issues and workers' rights. So thankfully, he did not mention honoring Pope Leo XIII's commitment to or views on Freemasonry, which we certainly hope is not the case. Right. So going on then, Pope Leo XIII. Pope Leo XIII was head of the Catholic Church from 1878 until 1903. He actually had the fourth longest reign of any pope. He's well known for his intellectualism and attempts to define position of the Catholic Church with regard to modern thinking. In his 1891 encyclical Rerum Novarum, outlined the rights of workers to fair wages, safe working conditions, formulation of trade unions, while affirming the rights to property for enterprise, opposing both socialism and laissez-faire capitalism. With that encyclical, he became popularly called the Social Pope. However, Pope Leo XIII wrote another work, which as Freemasons we should be paying much more attention to, Humanum Genus, which was published in 1884. Human Genus is principally a condemnation of Freemasonry. It was not the first time a Catholic, it was not the first time a Pope nor the Catholic Church had written anything negative or anything contrary to Freemasonry. I mean, the first time that took place was 1738. And when you think about it, the Grand Lodge of England, United Lodge of England, or even Grand Lodge of England at that time, formed in 1738. Sorry, 1717. So Grand Lodge of England formed in 1717, and 20 years later, give or take, Pope Clement XII writes the first papal bull condemning Freemasonry. You then had Pope Benedict XIV write something negative about Freemasonry in 1751. 1821, Pope Leo XII wrote something in 1826. Pope Pius VIII in 1829, Pope Gregory XVI in 1832, Pope Pius IX in 1846. So I'm not going to go through those, but this was not by any means the first time a pope had written something about Freemasonry, specifically something condemning Freemasonry. It was actually the eighth time someone had written something, but I think Pope Leo XIII's work, Humanum Genus, the papal encyclical, was probably the most, and to this day is what most inspires the current Catholic thoughts towards Freemasonry. It's actually available online, translated. It's in English. It's very easy to find. If you just go to Google, you can find the original. I shall leave a link to it in the description, even though I think much of it is incorrect, or I think all of it is incorrect. Nonetheless, I'll leave it for everybody to review. So right, in section 2 is when, again, this is from 1884, Pope Leo XIII begins to, mention Freemasons or Freemasonry. So right off the bat, as he says, and I'm pulling it up here, at this period, however, so at the period being 1884, however, the partisans of evil seems to be combining together and to be struggling with united vehemence, led on or assisted by the strongly organized and widespread association called the Freemasons. No longer making any secret of their purposes, they are now boldly rising up against God himself. They're planning the destruction of the Holy Church publicly and openly, and this with the set purpose of utterly despoiling the nations of Christendom, if it were possible, of the blessings obtained for us through Jesus Christ our Savior. Lamenting these evils, we are constrained by the charity which urges our heart to cry out often to God. For lo, thy enemies have made a noise, and they that hate thee have lifted up thy head. They have taken malicious counsel against thy people, and have consulted against thy saints. They have said, come and let us destroy them, so that they may not be a nation. So this was also written during a time when the Leo Taxil hoaxes were going on. Z, welcome Z. Great to have you back. Thanks for being here. We are continuing on with our discussion yesterday of the Catholic views on Freemasonry, particularly the views of Pope Leo XIII, who was the Pope from Let me just get the dates right again. He was a pope from 1878 until 1903, during which time he wrote Humanum Genus in 1884, which was a papal encyclical which was very negative towards Freemasonry. And so, on the one hand, it does concern me that our new pope chose to name himself after a pope that was famously anti-Freemasonry and probably did more than any other pope to cement the negative views of Freemasonry in the Catholic Church. However, I've not been able to see anything specific that Pope Leo XIV, the current pope, has ever said about Freemasonry. And the fact that he is Chicago-born, White Sox fan, lived in a time and a place where Freemasonry would have been relatively well established. Being born in the 50s, Freemasonry was on an upswing in America, including in Chicago. Maybe he has more positive views of Freemasonry or Freemasons. So I just finished reading section 2, or part of section 2 of Humanum Genus. Once again, I'm going to just read it one more time. At this period, however, the partisans of evil seems to become binding together and to be struggling with united vehemence. I can never say that word. Led on or assisted by that strongly organized and widespread association called the Freemasons. No longer making any secret of their purposes, they are now boldly rising up against God himself. They are planning the destruction of Holy Church, publicly and openly, and this with the set purpose of utterly despoiling the nations of Christendom, if it were possible, of the blessings obtained for us through Jesus Christ, our Savior. Lamenting these evils, we are constrained by the charity which urges our hearts to cry out often to God, for lo, thy enemies have made a noise, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Under section 6, again of the same papal encyclical, and by the way, Z, I'm having a great day. For as soon as the Constitution and the spirit of the Masonic sect were clearly discovered by manifest signs of its actions, by the investigation of its causes, by publication of its laws, and of its rites and commentaries, with the addition often of the personal testimony of those who were in the secret, this apostolic sect denounced the sect of Freemasons, and publicly declared its constitution as contrary to law and right, to be pernicious no less to Christendom than to the state. And it forbade anyone to enter the society unless under the penalties which the church is wont to inflict upon exceptionally guilty persons. Right? And so he's referring specifically there to 1738, Clement VIII, and his constitution, which was confirmed by Benedict IV. So this is just, he's going through all the past examples, the 7 times before Humanum Genus was written by Pope Leo XIII, in which Freemasonry was condemned, or in which the Catholic Church or the popes condemned Freemasonry. So again, I brought up the fact that, Freemasonry was formed in 1717, and by 1738, the first Pope, by 1738, a Pope, Clement the 12th, was already denouncing it for the similar reasons that you might see now, although there's also political reasons at play. Under section 7, in consequence, the sect of Freemasons grew with rapidity beyond conception in the course of a century and a half. I wish that was still the case. We are not growing at all the way we used to, unfortunately. But again, I do sense in that, and I don't know, I'm not a Catholic historian or, a historian of any kind. I do sense a little bit of jealousy there in that statement. In consequence, the sect of Freemasons grew with rapidity beyond conception in the course of a century and a half. Is that a little bit of jealousy on the part of the Catholic Church, on the part of the Pope, a feeling that Freemasons could be taking people, including time, away from the church, even though as Freemasons, obviously, you have to, believe in a supreme being, but we welcome men of all faiths and encourage men of whatever faith they are to be, loyal to their faith, go to their church, go to their mass, go to their mosque, whatever, their circles and traditional teachings if they're indigenous people. So it goes to misunderstanding, but it does seem there's a little bit of jealousy there in that idea of Freemasonry growing rapidly, maybe at a time when the church was struggling a little bit. What do we gain if the Pope says we're all right, guys? That's a really good question, actually, Spirit. I suppose you've pointed out one of the flaws in my, or one of the mistakes I've made in this is I'm kind of begging the question, right? Maybe it's worth asking the question, why does it matter if the Catholic Church is supportive of Freemasonry or changes its view on Freemasonry? What do we actually in Freemasonry gain from that? I mean, a lot more members. Um, no, so I do think we would see more members. I do think it would be very possible that if the Catholic Church were to change its views on Freemasonry and have a better understanding of what we are and what Freemasonry is, it would result in potentially more members. I also think, though, it would also make life better potentially. I don't know, honestly, how much people actually do care about this stuff. Um, but I do know many Masons who are also Catholics. And I've never asked them what their thoughts are towards the, Catholic ban, quote unquote, on Freemasonry or taking communion as a Freemason. So I never asked them what their thoughts are or if they have any kind of mixed feelings about it. But I certainly think, just in a practical sense, I'm not personally very religious myself. I tend to, I believe in a supreme being. I don't necessarily ascribe to any one particular faith. I'm somewhat skeptical of organized religion. Having said that, though, for those who are religious and for, the religion who cares about, if they care about their religious upbringing, their religious, life, and also care about their Freemasonry, I never want there to be a conflict between anything. I never want there to be a conflict between a Freemason and his home life, a Freemason and his religious life, a Freemason and his work. I want, as much as possible, all of those things to be unified as much as they can be. There's always going to be challenges. I said I never want there to be challenges between a Freemason and his home life. There are going to be times when, as a Freemason, maybe you need to spend less time at home to spend more time at the lodge, especially if you're a worshipful master. And there may be times you need to spend less time at lodge and more time at home. So you're always trying to balance these things. But I would hope that in 2025 and beyond, we in Freemasonry can do as much as we can to be a unified part of somebody's life and not create any type of conflicts, whether it be, and vice versa, not have any religious decrees create any type of conflicts, on the opposite side of things, right? Like, so I do think it could create more unified time. I do think, honestly, Spirit, I do have to disagree. I do think there are some Catholics, and I've talked to some who have been hesitant to or have not petitioned Freemasonry because of the Catholic ban on taking communion. So it does happen. Not often. I know far more. Like I said, I do know Catholics who are Freemasons. I know several Catholics who are Freemasons. But it does happen. The rule of eights, absolutely. No, I don't disagree. The Catholic Church has a damaged reputation, and probably, to be honest, for fair reasons. But I think there's a difference between you always want to separate to a certain extent, the men from the institution. Again, I know many Catholic Freemasons. I know many Catholics. They're all wonderful people. I don't hold like the church against them. And I do know that, even for many of them who maybe have conflicting views on the church and the scandals, not even scandals, I think just the the abuse, the picky, I mean, scandals makes it sound like it's not a big deal, right? The horrible things that happened. Still, love the Catholic Church, love the teachings, and want to, want to be good Catholics. So it's one of those things where there's always going to be this challenge, right? So how do we as Freemasons hopefully find a way to demonstrate to everybody, including the Catholic Church, what we actually are versus what the Catholic Church believes we are, in a way, hopefully, to get them to reconsider their views, if that makes any sense. And again, I think even though it's not the first time the Catholic Church denounced Freemasonry, the 1884 work, Papal Encyclopedia by Pope Leo XIII, Humanum Genus, most accurately describes the current views, most accurately and cemented the views of the Catholic Church as it relates to Freemasonry and why the Catholic Church had a negative view of Freemasonry. Right, in section 7, once again, the Pope Leo XIII writes, in consequence, the sect of Freemasons grew with rapidity beyond conception in the course of a century and a half. Sounds to me a little bit of jealousy there, to be honest, until it came to be able, a means of fraud or audacity, to gain such entrance into every rank of the state as to seem to be almost its ruling power. You may be talking about like Garibaldi there from Italy, for example, who was a Mason and was also very important in the foundation of a unified Italy. The swift and formal advance has brought upon the Church, upon the power of princes, upon the public well-being, precisely that grievous harm which our predecessors had long before foreseen. Such a condition has been reached that henceforth there will be grave reason to fear, not indeed for the Church, for her foundation is much too firm to be overturned by the effort of men, but for those states in which prevails the power, either of the sect of which we are speaking, or of other sects not dissimilar, which lend themselves to it as disciples and subordinates. So again, he says, by means of fraud or of audacity, has to gain entrance into every rank of the state. But he never says what is the actual fraud that Freemasons are perpetuating. And that's one of those things where you see that a lot in this work, Humanum Genus. He'll say something like the evil acts of the Freemasons, but he never proclaims what the evil acts actually are, or what is so evil about the acts of Freemasons. Again, he may have been influenced by the Leo Taxil hoax, which a lot of Catholics were, but he never says specifically what these are. He just says them, and I guess we're meant to just take him at his word, which I guess if you're Pope, you're probably used to that, being taken at your word necessarily. There are several organized bodies, this is section 9, which, though differing in name, in ceremonial, in form, and origin, are nevertheless so bound together by community of purpose and by the similarity of their main opinions as to make, in fact, one thing with the sect of Freemasons, which is a kind of center whence they all go forth, and whither they all return. So what he's speaking about there is honestly recognition, the idea of what recognition is and how it works. Because he says there are several organized bodies which, though differing in name, in ceremonial, in form, and origin, are nevertheless so bound together by community of purpose, or what we would call recognition. And so he's right about that. I mean, Freemasonry has many different bodies, many different rites, many different jurisdictions, bound together by community of purpose, or what we would call that in 2025, recognition. So it's different organizations. So what I've always said is Freemasonry is an umbrella term, right, which refers to different organizations which trace their origins to stonemason guilds of, the Middle Ages, and the way those different organizations relate to each other is what we would call through recognition, or what they would say in 1884, through a community of purpose. If we share the same purpose and we share certain standards as listed out by the Committee for Recognition, it would be recognized. You'd be recognized or have recognition. So you could argue the center of which he's referring to here, which is a kind of center whence they all go forth. That center is the core tenets, the landmarks of Freemasonry, which allow us to recognize various organizations under this umbrella. Rondo, so I do believe, and I'm not meaning to knock anybody in any, I speak only for myself, by the way, I want to make that clear. I'm not meaning to knock anybody in any type of religious organization. I don't think it was exclusively jealousy, Rondo, but I do believe amongst the Catholic Church there was an element of jealousy towards it. That did influence some of the negative views on Freemasonry. Not exclusively. Again, I mentioned it a couple of times, but I think the Leo Taxol hoax played a major role in it as well. I also think there is just in some instances people, human beings, and whether you're a pope or cardinal or bishop or anybody in a Catholic church, there can be a tendency to look for an other to cast ills upon, and when it's a quote unquote secret society, that can encourage that type of thinking. And then when you can build it up from there. Spirit of justice. I think all anti-Masonry. See, I disagree with that word, with that word all. I do agree it can, maybe even much of it comes from envy and jealousy, especially when it's coming from specific institutions. When it's an institution, could be a Catholic church, could be anything, then I think it's absolutely the case that there can be envy and jealousy, especially if they see Freemasonry growing rapidly, and that organization's numbers are dropping. So I think you're absolutely correct. It often comes from that, but I do think there are other places it comes from. Mostly fear of an independent power. No, I did read that, and I think, you see that we're going to talk about that more later, but you're absolutely correct in that there is this fear of the idea of independent power, and he actually talks about that, and it's one of the things where I think he's right. And I'm going to talk about this in a second. I think Pope Leo XIII was right. It's just he views it as a negative. I view it as a positive in a certain section. But I'm going to get to that part in just one second. This idea of independent power, what that means. Under section 9, he also, in the second paragraph, says, and this is something I think, again, provides an example of a misunderstanding of what Freemasonry is and what it, requests from its membership. Candidates are generally commanded to promise, nay, with special oath to swear, that they will never, to any person at any time or in any way, make known the members, the passes, the subjects discussed. Thus, with a fraudulent external appearance and with a style of simulation which is always the same, the Freemasons, like the Manichees of old, strive as far as possible to conceal themselves and to admit no witnesses but their own members. And so when you talk about that side of it, this again, paragraph 9 of Humanum Genus, right? Again, taking the time to point out the private nature of Masonic ritual. I've talked many times on this stream about why I personally as a Mason maintain the privacy of the rituals, why I think it's important. The example I've used a million times is, look, let us say that you have a family recipe that your grandmother or your grandfather gave to your parents, that they give to you, that you give to your kids. You are not going to put that family recipe on the internet and share it with everybody to see or share with people outside the family. The reason being that family recipe is a private thing that is meant to cement the bonds between past and future generations. We as Freemasons, what we have to pass down to our future generations of Masons is our ritual. Yes, we have, jewels and rings, but that stuff is just things, right? The true thing we have to pass down to our future membership from the past is our ritual. And if we share that outside of Lodge with non-members, it does, to a certain extent, take away that connection that exists between the membership, right? It affects our ability to maintain our bonds. I've said before, the purpose of ritual is to create bonds through shared experiences. If I'm putting the ritual on um, the internet for everybody to see, then it affects the shared nature of those bonds. Because now everybody knows it, everybody kind of has it, right? So when he says candidates are generally commanded to promise, nay, with a special oath to swear, that they will never to any person or at any time in any way make known the members, the passes, or the subjects discussed. Well, again, it's because if I tell everybody the passes or the subjects discussed within our ritual, well, then it means less. It's not something I can now pass down exclusively to my future members, right? I mean, just give one more example. My grandfather was a Mason on my dad's side. He passed away before I was born, so I never got to meet him. But I do feel connected to him because the passes, the subjects, also known as the ritual that he went through, is the same ritual I went through. And I feel connected myself to future Masons because they'll go through the same ritual I did. Um, and I also really want to note something else he says. Again, section 9. Candidates are generally commanded to promise, nay, with a special oath to swear, that they will never to any person or at any time in any way. No worries, Rondo. Thank you for being here. Make known the members, right? Now, notice, and he's right, right? It is expected of us that I'm not going to come on social media and say, unless I have permission, say this person is a Freemason, this person is a Freemason. That's not my responsibility. So I'm not going to make known members. But that doesn't mean I won't tell people I myself am a Freemason, right? The idea of not letting people know who are and aren't members, it's a matter of respecting an individual's privacy, because individuals, they may have various, they may not, they may not want people to know. Like if they go to a church, they may not want people in the church to say he goes to this church. What somebody chooses to disclose about their life should be up to them. And that includes membership in a Masonic organization, that includes information about their job, that includes information about their um, religion, that includes information about uh, who knows, or medical, like anything, right? So again, section 9 of Humanum Genus, when Pope Leo XIII says candidates are generally commanded to promise, nay, with a special oath to swear, that they will never to any person at any time or in any way make known the members. Well, that's a matter of being polite and respecting individuals' privacy. The passes or the subjects, that's to make sure that the connections between membership, both present, past, and future, is maintained strongly, or the subjects discussed. So he takes something that is meant as a positive and twists it and tries to turn it into a negative light, which is an example of a misunderstanding what Freemasonries are trying to do. Welcome back, Dad. Thank you for being here. Section 13, in those matters which regard religion, let it be seen how the sect of Freemasons acts, especially where it is more free to act without restraint, and let anyone judge whether in fact it does not wish to carry out the policy of the naturalists. By a long and persevering labor, they endeavor to bring about this result, namely that the teaching office and authority of the church may become of no account in the civil state, and for this same reason they declare to the people and contend that church and state ought to be altogether disunited. So what he's saying is Freemasons support the separation of church and state, which, I mean, I guess it's funny because in Freemasonry, we are not meant to discuss religion nor politics. So certainly Freemasons support the separation of church and Freemasonry, but whether Freemasons believe in the separation of church and state, that would be up to each individual Freemason to decide, and certainly would not be something that could be discussed in lodge. See, and then this is one of those things where it's an interesting example of conspiratorial thinking, why it can be so powerful. Under section 16, he says, if those who are admitted as members are not commanded to abjure by any form of words the Catholic doctrines, this omission, so far from being adverse to the designs of Freemasons, is more useful for their purposes. First, in this way, they easily deceive the simple-minded and the heedless, and can induce a far greater number to become members. Again, all who offer themselves are received whatever may be their form of religion. They thereby teach the great error of this age, that a regard for religion should be held as an indifferent matter, and that all religions are alike. So that's something I agree with personally, as well as in Freemasonry. One of the things I love about Freemasonry is that it does not, separate men based on religious beliefs, but rather welcomes men of all faiths, or members of all faiths. But what I really note is at the start, he says, if those who are admitted as members are not commanded to abjure by any form the words of the Catholic doctrines, this omission, so far from the adverse designs of Freemasons, is more useful for their purposes. So what he's basically saying there is the fact that Freemasons do not say anything negative about the Catholic Church in any of its teachings, any of its ritual, etc., is proof that it's against the Catholic Church, because it allows it's a way to trick people into thinking it's not anti-Catholic Church, right? It's one of those things where it's like if Freemasons did say negative things about the Catholic Church, then it would be proof that we're anti-Catholic. But the fact that we don't say anything negative about the Catholic Church is also proof that we're anti-Catholic, because it's just us tricking members and getting Catholics to join. So it's one of those things where, like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Literally, in this case, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And then again, and this makes sense from a Catholic perspective. This even goes into, or the Pope's perspective, this even goes into what was mentioned above about the idea of jealousy, right? He then goes on to say, again, this is section 16. Again, all who offer themselves are received, whatever may be their form of religion. They thereby teach the great error of this age, when he says age 1884, that a regard for religion should be held as an indifferent manner, and that all religions are alike. So, again, I guess it does make sense that from the perspective of a pope, he is not going to be a fan of an organization that treats all religions as being equal. But, in 2025, certainly, but even then, I think this goes to a misunderstanding of what Freemasonry is. For example, I've used this before. Let's say I get called to go to court because I have to testify. I would probably take my oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on a Bible, because that is, the book that most closely aligns with what I would describe as my faith and my religious beliefs. But the next witness on the stand may swear his Bible on may swear his oath to tell the truth on a Quran. The next witness may use a Torah. The next witness, if it's an indigenous person, for example, may use an eagle feather, right? And the reason is because it's a court of law, it's a civic and civil society, and it has a responsibility to treat all members of that community, regardless of their faith, equally. Now, the Catholic couldn't go into I can't think of the word now, like a Catholic, like a mosque, there we go. You can have a Catholic go into a mosque and say, okay, get rid of the Quran, we're going to use the Bible, and vice versa. You can have a Muslim go into a Catholic church and bring a Quran and say, you're using this book now. But those are religious institutions, right? Which is not what Freemasonry is. It's a civic institution. And because it's a civic and civil institution, it has a responsibility to treat all men of whatever faith equally, and to be respectful of those beliefs, right? It goes to show a difference in an understanding of what Freemasonry is Freemasonry is ultimately a civic, civil, or community institution, not a religious of one. There you go. No mode of salvation, no promise of damnation. And so, you would never, certainly I would hope not in 2025, um, you know, you would never say a court of law is treating religion with indifference. Rather, what you'd say is it is respecting the religious beliefs of all the members of the community who are required to go to church. And in the same way, what you would see in a civic institution like Freemasonry is the same thing. Um, and I think that's really important. So it's one of those things where it's just a misunderstanding. Um, by receiving members, whatever may be their form of religion, right? We are not teaching that regard for religion should be held as in a different manner. Rather we are demonstrating respect for the religious understandings of the community that makes up the membership in the lodge. And then there is a little bit of jealousy I sense here. But again, not even jealousy, just it's how the Pope would be brought up and to understand, of course, right? He says, this manner of reasoning is calculated to bring the ruin of all forms of religion, and especially Catholic religion, which, as it is the only one that is true, cannot with great injustice be regarded as merely equal to other religions. So, of course, from the Pope's perspective, because in his mind, the Catholic faith is the only one that is true, then it's not right to be in an organization which regards it as equal to any other religion, which, of course, he feels it's the only one that's true. He's the Pope. He kind of has to feel it's the only one that's true. But again, I use the court example. I do wonder, if I could interview Pope Leo XIII, I would ask him that question. I would ask him the court question. I'd say, if you were to go to court, do you think witnesses should be allowed to swear their oath to tell the truth on their holy book, whatever it might be, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, Hindu book, I can't think of its name now, an eagle feather? Or do you believe that in a court of law, everybody needs to swear on the same book, the Bible? Be curious about that. He may have. I think he did, right? So I'm going to talk more about the current Pope in a second, or why I think the current Pope, despite the fact that he took his namesake from Pope Leo XIII, who wrote this Humanum Genus, which kind of cemented the Catholic view, the negative Catholic view of Freemasonry, why I think there may be some more positive outlooks with the new Pope. I just want to go through this just to show kind of where the cemented idea, the negative cemented view of Freemasonry in the Catholic Church came from. Again, it really was cemented with Humanum Genus. He talks here, section 19. He says, if these be taken away, the idea that there is a one true religion, that there will immediately be no knowledge as to what constitutes true injustice and injustice, or upon what principle morality is founded, and in truth, the teaching of morality, which alone finds faith respect to Freemasons, and in which they contend that youth should be instructed, is what they call civil and independent and free, namely that which does not contain any religious belief. I personally, and this is my own opinion, again, I don't speak for Freemasons, I've never bought the view that with Freemasonry, I never bought the view that religion and religious belief is required to form morality. I think you can have a secular version of morality without relying on teachings, but Catholic teachings. And again, the Catholic Church and other churches have had their own examples of some pretty immoral behaviors. So I do sometimes question how useful it even is to have religious teachings forming your moral dogma or your moral views. he talks about under Section 21, Freemasons' view of marriage. I have no idea if Freemasons actually have these views on marriage. I've never heard any Freemasons talk about their views on marriage and what marriage is or is not. He says Freemasons have the idea that marriage is a civil institution and does not involve God. I've never heard any Freemason discuss the idea of marriage as being a civil institution versus a religious institution. Freemasons aren't, marrying themselves or worshipful masters. There may have been historical examples of it. I'd be curious to see some, but I don't know of any, worshipful masters marrying members with their wives or anything like that. So I don't know where that idea comes from. Again, in Section 21, he says, and this is something I find very interesting, because I don't know where it comes from. With the greatest unanimity, the sect of Freemasons also endeavors to take to itself the education of youth. They think they can easily mold their opinions that soft and pliant age and bend it whither they will, and that nothing can be more fitted than this to enable them to bring up the youth of the state. This was written, again, Humanum Genus was written in 1884. The first youth groups, to my knowledge, which was Order de Molay, which was early 20th century, Rainbow Girls, early 20th century. I mean, there were no Masonic youth groups at the time that this was written. Let me just double check to make sure I'm getting that right. When it was founded. So de Molay was founded in 1919, which was the youth group for young boys. Rainbow Girls was founded in 1922. I don't know if that was part of the Leo Taxil hoax, the idea of Freemasons running out to teach children. So I don't understand where that came from. That was Section 21. And then the next section is Section 22, where he mentions Freemasons. And this is something where I think I agree with the Pope on this, but he views it as a negative. I would view this as a positive. He says in Section 22, then comes their doctrines, Freemasons' doctrines of politics, lays down that all men have the same right and are in every respect of equal and like condition, that each one is naturally free and no one has the right to command another, that it is an act of violence to require men to obey any authority other than that which is obtained from themselves. When he says obtained from themselves, he means voted on or democratically elected. Therefore, all things belong to the free people. Power is held by the command of permission of the people, elections, so that when the popular will changes, rulers may lawfully be deposed, and the source of all rights and civil duties is either in the multitude or in the governing authority when this is constituted according to the latest doctrines. So what you see there is, Freemasonry is, and Z, I'm sure, and maybe, if you want to jump in and confirm this, or other people want to confirm this, Freemasonry is a democratic institution. We elect our leadership. No Mason has the right to just tell others what to do or how to act unless he is elected in a position of authority, either a master, a warden, or in a particular office. So certainly within our Masonic lodges, Freemasons act in a manner that is democratic. Again, another example of why it's not a religion. In a religion, it's not democratic. You can't, if the priest says, the Bible says X, and this is how it is to be interpreted, the congregation doesn't get to vote on whether to accept that, right? In Freemasonry, it's different. At all levels, it is democratic. There is no authority from a divine being. Rather, the authority is obtained from ourselves, otherwise known as the authority is obtained from democratic elections. And certainly you could argue that in Freemasonry, there is this idea that should be, Pike talked about it. I'm not a huge Pike fan, but the idea that it should be expanded outwards, for that makes sense, right? It'd be very hard for me to I mean, I guess anything's possible, but it would be very hard for me to imagine you could have a Freemason who is also anti-democratic and who believes, as Pope Leo XIII believed, that power does not come from democracy, but rather comes from God, who, you know, ordains a church, and then the church gets to tell people what to do. Um, right? And so this is one of those examples where, again, Pope Leo XIII views the democratic nature of Freemasonry and the democratic nature of our institutions as being a negative and being opposed to the church, because again, the church would view authority as being something divine as opposed to something democratic. Um, I would say I'm doing well, Afri. Thank you for being here. It's truly wonderful to have you. I would say that's one of our greatest strengths. I personally believe strongly in democracy. I think, again, we can't talk about politics in lodge, so I'm sure there are Freemasons who are anti-democratic. It just would be very hard for me to imagine how you would balance those two things. It'd be challenging. Um, but I would say again, this was written in 1884. This idea of power as being divine versus power as being democratic. I mean, I suspect the modern church would have different views on that. I mean, if you were to ask them what gives a prime minister, a president, the right to act with authority over his people, I can't imagine the church would say God. I think the church would say democracy. And certainly the fact that popes in recent years have met with the democratically elected leaders of the states, various states, Canada, US, whatever it might be, tells me that, you know, at least from it, the church has certainly, if nothing else, softened its view on the idea of democracy as being antithetical to the church. Um, then it says under section 24, what therefore sect of Freemasons is and what course it pursues appears sufficiently from the summary we have briefly given. Their chief dogmas are so greatly and manifestly at variance with reason that nothing can be more perverse. So again, 1884, Pope Leo XIII writes this, and basically he views the chief dogmas of Freemasonry as being first, an indifference to religion, as opposed to what it actually is, which is a respect for the members' religious beliefs, whatever they may be. So it's not a matter of indifference, it's rather a matter of respect. The other dogma he cites is our desire to maintain privacy of ritual and privacy of membership, which again, privacy of membership is something we do out of respect. Nobody has ever told me I cannot tell anybody I want that I'm a Freemason, and is not, and sometimes they even encourage me to tell people I'm a Freemason, and to talk about why I love Freemasonry. Maintaining privacy of membership for others, though, is a matter of respect, respecting their right to privacy and their right to disclose whatever it may be that they do or do not want to share with others, as well as when he talks about maintaining the privacy of our modes of recognition and our ceremonies. It's about maintaining the relationship between our past members and our future members in the same way families have family recipes that they don't share with the public but pass down generation to generation. We don't have family recipes, we have ritual. And maintaining the privacy of those rituals is what keeps us connected to our past and future brothers. And then the third dogma he talks about is the democratic ideals of Freemasonry, which he views as, again, Pope Leo XIII in 1884 viewed as negative and antithetical to the church. I would view the democratic nature of Freemasonry as a positive, in fact, as one of its greatest strengths, and also as something that can, to a certain extent, be an example of a model for potentially the world to emulate, hopefully. So, why is it that I have hope that Pope Leo XIV will actually result in a more positive view of Freemasonry from the Catholic Church when his namesake or his named predecessor, Pope Leo XIII, wrote the 1884 work Humanum Genus, which probably more so than any other work cemented the negative Catholic view towards Freemasonry? Well, there's a couple different reasons for that. The first is some of these reasons listed in Humanum Genus in 1884 are just no longer applicable to the Catholic Church. So the most chief example is the negative view that Pope Leo XIII has towards democracy, which I just don't think the Catholic Church has that anymore in 2025. I've not seen any writings of the Catholic Church recently that knock the idea of democracy or power deriving from democracy or the value and importance of democracy. The fact that they're meeting with presidents, prime ministers, men whose power derives from democratic elections tells me that the Catholic Church no longer holds this view, or at least doesn't hold it in the same way. So as a result, I think that Catholic objection to Freemasonry is probably no longer relevant in 2025. Not in my lifetime, Dad, but maybe one day. So that's the first one. The second reason, it goes to this idea of secrecy. So again, in 1884, Pope Leo XIII used the private, quote unquote, secret nature of Freemasonry as a knock against it. But again, he would have came up at a time when he may not have known Freemasons, or Freemasonry was not as big as it would become. The current Pope is different, right? So the current Pope, Pope Leo XIV, just to give you an idea of where and how he grew up and what Freemasonry was at that time, he was born September 14th, 1955. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, raised in a town near the city's south side. So at the time he was born, so in 1959, there was 4 million members nationwide. So he was born in America at a time when there were over 4 million members in America. The Grand Lodge of Illinois had over 420 lodges, over 60,000 members. Currently 45,000. In 1959, it was the peak of Freemasonry in America. So Pope Leo XIV would have, as almost everybody would have in the 1950s through the 1960s, had some type of connection to Freemasonry. I don't mean he was a member or anything, or had family who were members, but he would have seen Masonic buildings, would have seen Masonic lodges. He would have known Masons. He would have seen the Masonic bumper stickers. And so the idea of Masonry as being like a secretive organization or clandestine organization would not hold the same weight, in my opinion, for the current Pope as it would have for popes in the past. Even the previous Pope, right? He would have, let me just get his predecessor, because Pope Francis, who was born in 1936, but he was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, to a family of Italian origin. At that time in Argentina, Freemasonry was much less common than it is even today. It was also much more clandestine, much more like it's easier in that sense to have more negative views of Freemasonry, in the sense that it was not as ubiquitous and as common as in Buenos Aires in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s as it was in Chicago and in America in the 1950s. Um, so I just think the current popes, when he was born, where he was born, means he would more likely have had some connections with, or some, what's the good word I'm looking for? Some exposure to Freemasonry that others just would not have had. And why that is so, I think that could be so valuable to a better understanding of it, right? The Also, it seems that in some ways, Pope Leo XIV is a little bit more, I guess, secular can't be the right term, right? We're talking about a pope, but more willing to be supportive of other faiths. And Afrith, you are right. I talked about why. So not this pope, because I don't know what this pope thinks of Freemasonry, but the Catholic Church's views, negative views towards Freemasonry, were really cemented in 1884 in the work Humanum Genus. I talked about kind of in that work why it is that the Catholic Church and the Pope at that time had a negative view on Freemasonry, um, which kind of has cemented in a lot of ways the current views. Right. In his most recent views, he's concerned about the cultural shifts, a type of Copernican revolution involving artificial intelligence and robots. He was inspired by Leo XIII, who was in the midst of industrial revolution, wrote Rerum Novarum, launching an important dialogue between the church and the modern world. In May 2023 interview, he stressed the need for prudence and responsibility on using social media to preclude fueling divisions and controversy, and doing damage to the communion of the church. This view is in line with his tendency to speak with caution and great deliberation and steely determination and clarity. So, again, a desire to avoid division, a desire to avoid controversy, a desire to be cautious and deliberate. Maybe that will indicate a more positive view of Freemasonry, or a desire to avoid divisions between, let's say, Catholic Church and any group, including Freemasonry. I will tell the Pope that, Dad. I'll see how it goes. Within the context of church and politics, Prevost, the Pope has been seen as a moderate or centrist. Again, moderation, centrism, that gives me hope for the idea of maybe a new view towards Freemasonry. He supported COVID-19 vaccinations, um, sympathetic for George Floyd. Again, all these things which indicates a more civil or civic-minded Pope, in my opinion. So, and so, again, the current or most recent, negative Catholic view towards Freemasonry, which was kind of reaffirmed a couple years ago. Again, it dates back really far. It was cemented by Pope Leo XIII in 1884. But it is my opinion that the new Pope, I'm going to choose to be optimistic here, that the new Pope can potentially provide more opportunities for growth between the Church and Freemasonry, and maybe we will see a review. Again, maybe somebody in Illinois would be willing to reach out to the Catholic Church somehow and say, like, one of our Illinois native sons is Pope. We're Illinois Freemasons. Let's have a chat. Let's see if we can get some new views. Again, being born when he was, where he was, he would have been exposed to Freemasonry much more regularly than other popes, as well as kind of not the clandestine version that we often see in Freemasonry. Jessica Kern, I do remember you. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are doing well. So that is my opinion for whatever it's worth. Let me know what you thought of it. If you think maybe you have some optimism as well as I do. We've had 13 votes. With the new pope, will the Catholic Church review change its policy towards Freemasonry? Unsure, 54%. No at 38%. Yes at 8%. I'm sorry that you're still in the hospital. I know you said you took a baseball to the head, so take care of yourself. Don't let yourself get do what the doctor tells you. As I always say, you don't tell the doctor tells you, which I firmly believe. In the meantime, if there is anything else that people want to talk about, I'm more than happy to discuss. My day is going well. As always, I'm hoping we can get some more people joining our stream. Please feel free to share this stream, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, etc., etc. Check out our other poll questions. Support on Patreon as well. I'll leave the link for Patreon here. You can join for free, or you can pay $2 or $3 a month, and it is super, super helpful. But my day is going well, and like I was saying, I hope that you find yourself out of the hospital soon. But not too soon. As always, do what the doctor tells you. Because that is going to be, and I always talk about this with Freemasons as well, like, do what the doctor says. Freemasons are notoriously stubborn, don't want to do what they're told, which is unfortunate, because if you don't do what you're told, you often end up in more, trouble. But I'm going to give it a bit more time and see who else joins. We did the second part of the stream, which was, again, why I have some... It's unfortunate, Afreeth, that people do sometimes have those beliefs. I'm proud to do my best to try to convince people of otherwise, or I hope that I can demonstrate to people that is not the case. But it is tough, and unfortunately, people want to believe what they want to believe, right? So unfortunately, it can be incredibly challenging and difficult sometimes if people have these beliefs. But I have done my best, and I hope that my stream, if nothing else, can help people reconsider some of those negative views towards Freemasonry. I'm looking at some topics for tomorrow. I was thinking actually of talking a little bit about, amongst other things, Freemasonry in Asia, because I still want to know more about it. I know, unfortunately, very little about Freemasonry in Asia compared to, certainly I know a lot about Freemasonry in North America, and a fair bit, I believe, about Freemasonry in certain parts of Europe, especially England. I'm learning more about Freemasonry in South America, but I know, unfortunately, like I said, very little about Freemasonry in Europe. In Asia. So that's 1,000,000% on my list. Because I think different parts, like I talked about Freemasonry in Hong Kong and China, which was super interesting. But welcome. If you are just joining us, I hope you will take a moment to please hit the like button and the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing and what it is that you maybe want to chat about with Freemasonry. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear it. Thank you, everybody who's joined us so far. It's been great to have some new people on the stream. It is, but I try, I've talked about this in the past, Afrith. Um, in my opinion, how have I put it this way before, right? It's like the old wrestling statement. I can't convince you that wrestling is real, but I can convince you that I'm real. I apply that to Freemasonry. I can't convince you that Freemasonry is good, but I can convince you that I'm good, or hopefully I can convince you that I'm good. And that to me is the most important thing. So hopefully, even if people are slandering against Freemasonry, if they come and they see me and they hear me talking, they will, even if they end up not liking Freemasonry, I really hope that at the very least they will view me positively, and maybe that can help me reconsider my views, reconsider their views on Freemasonry, hopefully. And welcome if you are just joining us. I hope you will hit the like button and subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing. We were talking about the Catholic Church's views on Freemasonry, as well as really we're at that stage where it's kind of anything we want to talk about. That's the fun part about these streams. I was talking about Freemasonry and the Catholic Church, or more particularly the Catholic Church and Freemasonry. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the poll question, or at this point, anything else you want to talk about. I do also want to discuss mental health and Freemasonry, but maybe I'll do that another day. There is, however, a lot of value that Freemasons provide for individuals' mental health, and it is in the state's Mental Health Month. So I think that's worth exploring as well. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here. As always, good. I'm glad you're hanging with your mentor. I hope he's doing well. I hope everybody joining us will hit that like button. See if you can find any other things you want to talk about when it comes to Freemasonry. Positive, negative, or neutral. I hope your mentor, though, by the way, is doing well. I hope everybody watching this is doing well. And please, if you are new to the stream, jump in the chat, say hello. We chat about Freemasonry every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we were talking about the new Pope and why I think this new Pope may result in a more positive view or change in view of the Catholic Church towards Freemasonry. We're also talking about some of the history of those views and where the Catholic Church kind of cemented its negative views more towards Freemasonry. But that is for another time. I was talking about that for the last hour. Now we're back to the Ask Us Anything, Let's Talk About Anything portion of the stream. So anything you guys want to talk about, let's hear it. positive, negative, neutral. I've been a Mason since 2017. I certainly don't claim to know everything about Freemasonry, but I at least think I have some experience talking about Freemasonry. Talking about my experience with Freemasonry, what I have found worked for me, what made me a successful Mason, as well as potentially the dangers for others, or the dangers, the not even the dangers, the things that can result in like a not as successful Masonic experience or not as successful Masonic Lodge experience. No, unfortunately, I don't know any brothers in Qatar. I believe there are Masonic lodges. Um, well, no, I agree with that. I think UGLE is the more important thing. I mean, the Vatican couldn't recognize Freemasonry. Recognition is a Masonic term. Um, um, It could be though, the Catholic Church could say, you're allowed to join. You can join Freemasonry and be a Catholic and still take communion. Would again, it's not a ton of people. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm sure that there are some Catholics who would like to join Freemasonry, but are not willing to due to the Catholic position on it, as well as maybe some Catholic Freemasons. I know several Catholic Freemasons. I never asked them about it, but I'm not sure if they have any internal conflicts about being part of a Masonic lodge while their church has that position. Um, so, but I think, yeah, recognition, that's a whole other can of tuna. I did a live stream about that a few weeks ago. Might be worth exploring once again. I believe most of the Masonic lodges in Qatar, by the way, are on military bases. Though there is Masonic High Council of Qatar, though I don't know anything about it as to whether it's legal or illegal, or whether it's clandestine or not, I should say. To my knowledge, the one country, like as the majority country, where Freemasonry is most kind of allowed and open is Morocco, I believe. Interesting, Qatar's been in the news lately for gifting Trump with a new jet, so. I'm just going to wait to see who else joins us. It's been a great stream so far. I may even try another stream tonight, just because the midnight streams are going so well. Yeah, it looks like there are no regular Masonic lodges in Qatar, according to Quora. I wonder if I could. I mean, can you imagine how much fun it would be to go to a Masonic meeting on a military base? That would be so much fun. Um, I don't know. First of all, it'd be an American military base, so I don't know if I, as a Canadian, would be allowed to get in. You'd have to probably contact a Mason, it'd be, it would be very challenging, I feel like, because I feel like you need to get permission to be there. You need to, you know, you'll need to have a sponsor too. Go here first. I'm just looking this up because I'm curious to see if I was ever traveling somewhere, could I potentially join it, or potentially go to a meeting there? How would I get on the base? It'd be really interesting. It would be really, really fun. Yeah, I think that's the one place where it's located. It would be maybe on a U.S. airbase because I'm not sure. I think Freemasonry may be illegal in Qatar. I'm not positive. Or, um, but again, wouldn't constitute a U.S. airbase. But I don't know. I said I don't know a ton about it to say for sure. As always, always have due diligence when it comes to if you're traveling somewhere. I talked about this before. Like you have to, as a Mason, I'm a traveler. I'm proud of that. I got my tattoo here. It says traveler. But what that means is I have responsibility when I'm traveling to make sure that I'm aware of the Masonic situation in any particular country to which I'm traveling, et cetera, et cetera. Oops. Trying to imagine what it would be like to even visit there. It'd be incredible. I have no doubt. It's just how in heaven's name would I get permission to visit there? Yeah, could anybody imagine how incredible it would be to visit a Masonic lodge on a military base? Didn't I think Ken Bouchard, who I had on this the channel, actually did um, thank you. I appreciate that. I've had a great time doing them. Um, oh, Lodge 42. This is I love this lodge. I'm just looking at stuff online, checking out the lodge in Los Angeles, which I haven't had a chance to visit in so long. I'd love to get back there and visit it because it's so incredible. Um, no worries. Charge your phone. Thank you for being here. I'm trying. Now you got me down this rabbit hole. I'm trying to figure out if there would ever be a way to visit a Masonic lodge on a air base, or on an Air Force base, or sorry, a military base. Visiting Masonic lodge on Air Force base. There's one in Air Force Base in California. Here's one in Kandahar Airfield, Canadian Masonic Lodge. If I could figure this out. And welcome, by the way, if you're just joining us, hope you'll take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe button. Let me know how it's going. Welcome. If you are just joining us, hope you take a moment to hit that like button and the subscribe button. Let me know how it's going. We're here chatting about Freemasonry. I was talking earlier about the Catholic view on Freemasonry and why I think the new Pope may potentially provide more different view towards it. I hope he does, and maybe we can get some changing of ideas. I have not, sadly, and that's why I was just thinking, how incredible would it be to find a Masonic lodge on a military base? I have no clue how you would even how would you even get there, or who would you contact, or whatever it might take. I feel like it would be incredibly challenging. So they're not just gonna let you walk onto a Masonic, a military base. I don't care what dues card you got in your pocket, right? I would be interested too. Like I said, I've never done it, but it would be fascinating to get on there and to check it out. Who would you even call? Oh, well, there's a airbase housing office. I have no, by the way, plans of going to Qatar. I'm just genuinely curious now of how you'd go about it if I were to find myself in Qatar. How would I, good one, Ryan, how would I possibly, I have to call somebody on base, ask them, do you know any Masons? Hope that they do. Get in touch with the Mason. Hope the Mason would, sponsor me somehow. Get a pass. It would be fun, though. It would be a fun time. It'd actually probably be an absolutely incredible time. Let's see. I think they're saying they're PHA as well, which I don't know why they would be. Doha military base. I'm putting up images to see if I can find anything. Oh, hold on a second. Prince Hall. I think maybe, according to Facebook, there is one, JRJ Military Lodge number 172. It's out of Oklahoma. I can't find any contact info. Let me see if I can find anything. Where's the about info? Da, 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 da. Last post was last year, 2024. This is a 2022. No worries, if I could find more information about it. I feel like well, here's a list of people from 2020. This is becoming interesting. I'm going to see if I can track down any of these names. I'm going to see if I connect. All right, guys. Well, this has been fun. I think we'll end this stream now because I have to do some work. I'll be doing another stream tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time once again. I do have some meetings in the morning, but I should be done in time. Maybe talk more about Freemasonry and mental health and why I think it's valuable, although it probably hurts my mental health. It's a whole other can of tuna. All right, guys. Thank you so much and have a great night. Or a great day, and maybe I will do another stream even this evening around midnight because yesterday's stream was so much fun. All right, talk to you guys later.